Hi, going to try to give you an idea of what the balloon flight consisted of the other day. Last Thursday we launched from the Maplewood Golf Course in Bethlehem, New Hampshire, and you're seeing a red line on here which is the actual data from the flight, and the yellow line is the predicted data which we ran at 2:15 a.m. before we headed out to do the launch. And we were 29 minutes late launching it, so it could make a slight difference in the flight plan, but it's pretty amazing how close it came. We were within 4.1 miles where it burst, where it was predicted to burst, and we were even closer within 3 miles and change of where it was going to land. And I am going to run the tour for you now and get rid of this sidebar view so we can see more. And here we are starting out in Bethlehem, the little town of Bethlehem. And you're seeing 3D on the yellow course because it actually has the altitude data on it. On the red course, we don't have the altitude data. I mean, we do have the altitude data, but I just haven't figured out how to use it in Google Earth. So it's a little bit more difficult to put that in there. I've got it in other programs, but I just haven't figured out how to get it into Google Earth. So this is showing you, if you're looking at the red line there, we'll be breaking through this yellowish green wall here in a second. Get on the other side. Okay, and we're crossing over Route 3, and there's Twin Mountain over on the left-hand side. And even though it shows the balloon following the contour of the land, that is not the way it's going. That's just the way it plotted it out here. It's thousands of feet above these mountains at this point. And we did reach a maximum altitude of 81,741 feet, which was pretty cool. And speaking of cool, it got down to 53.6 below zero, but that, believe it or not, was not at the highest altitude. That was at 36,912 feet where it reached that colder temperature. It was a balmy 12.1 below zero at maximum altitude. And we had a downrange tracking station in Bartlett being manned by Jim Pettingill at the garage right in Main Street. And long before this, he was picking it up. Like he was picking us up 10 miles after we launched. And he had a few friends around, and they were looking to see if they could see it. Unfortunately, our tracking was not working because of the fact that it was on AT&T, and things had been not only shut off on us, but the coverage is not great. So because that part of the tracking was not working, they had to rely on what they were seeing and for video, and then look up at it, and they actually did spot it. And when they spotted it, it was considerable distance away from them still. It was 51,938 feet up, which was pretty amazing by itself. And it was flying over the summit of B.E.A.R. Mountain. It just passed the summit of B.E.A.R. Mountain, so it was like 3.8 miles away from them. And it was quite the sight. We all stopped, all the kids and everything stopped in Bartlett and got out and looked up and saw the little star that we put up in the sky. It was pretty cool. And because it was climbing and still going for its maximum altitude then, and in fact they watched it climb 30,000 feet more from that point, and by this time it was down over Albany. And even though it looked like it was straight up over us, you had to look up very straight to see it because it was so high up that it gave you the illusion that it was right over you when it was really 9 miles away. And here's that point right here coming up over B.E.A.R. Mountain where the tracking station first spotted it physically. And looking at the other, okay, up ahead we see Albany coming up. And that is the point where that's the Kank right beside us on the left-hand side right there. And in Albany, it was just past Route 16, about 3/4 of a mile, when it burst between Iona Lake and Whitten Pond. And at that point, it was under parachute. And the first part of the parachute drop was pretty rapid because there's no air to fill it up. I've only checked the first couple of miles, but it was falling at 70 miles an hour until it got down to where there was enough air to fill up the parachute, and then it slowed it down considerably. Its average speed after that was about 17 miles an hour. And you're coming back into the other predicted line there. We'll go up at a higher altitude after this finishes going through so that you can see the difference between the red line and the yellow line. They're pretty close together. It always makes some sort of turn when it hits the different winds aloft, and that's why it's crossing. The yellow one is crossing over right here because of when it's going up. It goes one way, and then it comes under the parachute and gets down back to the winds below, and it goes back the other way. So it makes a little turn, kind of. It didn't make it nearly as radically as it was predicted it was going to, but here we are heading over King Pine ski area on the right and Purity Lake there. And we just passed Foss Mountain on the left. That's Freedom dead ahead. And Loon Lake, I believe it's called, there in Freedom. This is pretty close to the road that we went down as well to get there, because we headed down Madison Road and ended up on 153 and finally made it out to Route 25 and into Porter, Maine, and it went south of Porter, Maine, and actually landed in Parsonsfield. Right here at this point, south of Freedom right now, this is where Jim Pettingill last had contact with it from Bartlett. So he had video contact and telemetry all the way down to here from Bartlett. And it was about 22,000 feet elevation when he lost contact. So not sure if it was the mountains in between or the distance that he lost it with, but anyway, we were scrambling to catch up with it, and we were not, because we lingered in Bartlett watching the little artificial star that we put up in the sky too long. We didn't get here in time to greet it on its landing, which one of these days we hope to do. But we did call it on the phone, and if you look, you'll see a couple of, it's going to stop here in a second, but I'm going to move it over there to explain it better to you. That's Route 160 that we're going over right there. And that's where it's going to stop. So I'm going to change this around a little bit for you and show you that this, when we called it, after we lost our video contact with it and telemetry data, we called the tracker on the balloon by phone, and the plan ahead of time was that we were all going to try to call it to make sure somebody got a location on it. And I was the only one who was able to get a location. So this is where it reported to me that it was, which is about 2/10 of a mile off from the road right here. And that's where it said it was, so that's where we started looking for it. And we still had another hour and a half or so of video transmit battery left, so we knew that it would still be transmitting video, but unfortunately the antenna was stuck right in the mud, so it wouldn't go very far. And we searched high and low for quite a few, literally high and low. We walked through the swamp, and we also flew over the top of it looking for it. And Justin did not give up. Justin Lipson, he was responsible for the tracking while we were chasing it, and also he's very good at finding things in the woods and climbing trees. And did not have to climb a tree this time, fortunately, but he took off from, let's see the spot on the road here, right here, this little spot right here. He took off from here on a dead run through the woods, because when you're moving, your GPS is much more accurate than it is if you're standing still. You can get an idea of which direction you should be going as long as you're still moving. But he also only had 1% battery left on his phone, so he took off from right here, running through the woods. And this is the point where it reported to him, and this was like 4 or 5 hours after it had landed. It reported where it was to him, and or it gave back. That was probably one of the calls he had made earlier. It responded to him by sending him a text message, and that's what he was headed for. He was running to get there before his battery ran out, and also running to keep it more accurate. And where it was actually sitting was right here. So these are the this is the onboard data that we got after we retrieved it. And Justin was able to walk right up to this spot, and we found another balloon in the clearing. And that balloon, he saw that through the woods and headed towards it, and it landed right next to our balloon. So there was another balloon that had been hanging in the tree for some time, that someone had sent up in memory of their dad on his birthday, and we found that with notes on it and so on. And that's where it ended up, 54.7 miles away. And it was quite the adventure, and we got some great footage, and we're still working on the video, nighttime video of the moon setting, and full moon setting, and the sun rising. So pretty nice stuff. So stay tuned for that, and we'll fill you in on it.